Shabbat Shalom, everyone. When you were in Sunday school and you learned the story about Noah, how did the story end? The dove, right? Well, that's not actually how the story ends. So if you'll please turn with me to page 52, we'll get the more adult version. It's on page 52, towards the very bottom of the English translation. It's the last sentence on that page. Noah, the tiller of soil, was the first to plant a vineyard. He drank of the wine and became drunk, and he uncovered himself within his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father's nakedness and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a cloth, placed it against both their backs, and walking backward, they covered their father's nakedness. Their faces were turned the other way, so that they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah woke up from his wine and learned that what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves, shall he be to his brothers." And he said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem. Let Canaan be a slave to them. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be a slave to them." Noah lived after the flood 350 years, and all the days of Noah came to 950 years, and then he died. You can see why we don't share this one in Sunday school. I think what's being presented in the text is an opportunity to understand how humanity responds to trauma, both the one that experiences the trauma and the ones trying to comfort or react to a friend or family member experiencing trauma. And what's interesting to me about the text, I think it's not judgmental. I think it doesn't say, yes, we always choose life, that's the right thing to do, right? There's no judgment passed on Noah. So what I want to do is explore these lines together in a conversation, more than a sermon today, about the human response to trauma. So you got to picture Noah, right? He saw the whole world destroyed. And he was the one solely responsible to make sure that some semblance of life would survive the flood. That's a lot of pressure. So what's the first thing he goes out and does? What did you read? What's the first thing he goes out and does? He plants a vineyard. What else could he have planted? What else might he be needing at this time? Food, right. He could have planted fruit, or he could have planted wheat, and the Midrash points that out. Or he could have planted flax for more clothing, but he doesn't. Now, you tell me though, right? It's unclear from this action, was he intentionally trying to get drunk, or was he just kind of going about and doing his thing? Yes and yes? It was his intention. Why? He needed to release tension. Yeah, maybe he needed a little time to recover. Lexer. Okay, so Lexer's saying, well, we're being told that he's the first to plant a vineyard, so the story could have gone either way. It could have been this drunken, revealing of nakedness, or it could have been the sanctification of the Sabbath with the wine. The wine, the vineyard, was neutral. What he did with it was a choice. Chuck.
When the Spanish came to the United States and they established their missions, the first thing friars or whoever always did is they planted a vineyard for grapes and olives, because they needed both for their ritual.
Okay, so Chuck says when the Spaniards came to the United States and they were setting up missions, they planted olives so that they could have olive oil and grapes so they could have wine for their sacraments. Here's an interesting thing about grapes, though. Do they grow overnight? No. And once you want to ferment wine, does it happen in 2 days' time? No. So Noah had a lot of time. He had a lot of time on his hands to process what had happened to him. And he still is making the choice to get drunk and reveal himself, which I'm not blaming him for. I've never seen the whole world destroyed, but it's an interesting thing. You know what else we're told about Noah? At the very beginning of the story, it says he was born righteous and blameless, and the Midrash says that means he was born already circumcised. So what does that mean? How did Noah start out his life? He started out pure. He started out with no sin. He was perfect, which is, I think, somewhat the narrative of every human being. One of the reasons I love being around new babies is here's this shiny new person who hasn't made any mistakes yet, right? There's something miraculous about that. And so I think, to some extent, Noah is the story of us all, that we start out totally perfect, totally pure, and then we all encounter tragedy and challenge. I think, too, it's interesting to see how people respond to Noah's loss of self-control and loss of dignity. So we hear the story of Ham, right, who comes out and tells his brothers, Dad's naked in the tent. Now, we know that Noah is angry about it, right? He curses Ham, but the text doesn't actually say whether this is a good or bad thing. So what do you see in Ham coming forward to say, hey, Dad's naked in the tent? What is he trying to do? Oh, maybe he's trying to get his brothers upset about it?
Sort of like the emperor's new clothes. Nobody else is going to say it.
He's trying to speak the truth. Look, guys, I think Dad is in trouble. We've got to do something about this. Mary. Maybe he didn't know how to handle it. He'd never seen someone drunk and naked and out of control before, least of all his father. Cliff. He wants his brothers to join him in evil. Maybe he's trying to shame his father, embarrass his father. Chuck.
Along the same lines, Noah was perfect, and he saved the world. Here, his son comes, and probably Noah's been up on a pedestal, and here's an opportunity for his son to bring him down a few pegs in front of everybody else, sort of to ridicule his father, but also to make him human, take him from being perfect down to being just another human being.
So Chuck says Noah was on this pedestal. He was born perfect. He saved the entire world in a ship, and now he's not doing so great. So it's a way of either taking him down a peg or two, or acknowledging that he's only human. I think these are all very normal ways that we respond when we see someone else traumatized, right? We don't know what to do. We feel embarrassed. Maybe there's a part of us that says, well, finally they get what's due to them. And then what about the brothers who cover him up? Because that could be read positively or negatively too. What's the positive way to reading covered up? Yes, Steve.
They say, we see Dad as a flawed person. Let's just take care of him on his down day.
Wait, our dad is a flawed person. We need to care for him on a day that he's not doing well. Yes, Jessica. It was a sign of respect, right? We're going to turn our backs. We're not going to look at him in his embarrassing moment. We don't want to make his shame worse than it is. Yes.
And yet, when Noah woke up, he was angry at Ham for how did he know that? The two brothers told him, look what you did, and we were the good guys.
So she's saying,
Jealousy.
you know, how did Noah know in the first place that Ham had pointed out his nakedness? His brothers must have gossiped. His brothers must have tattled. Another sign for covering up might be, we don't even want to know about your shame, Dad. Right? We just want to bury it. We can't handle it. We have to see you as perfect. We can't deal that you're a human being who's been traumatized. And I think it's interesting, too, the text using the word when Noah woke up from his wine, because it could be just simply what it means on the surface. He slept it off, he woke up. Or it could be Noah woke up and said, I don't want to do this again. I didn't like who I was. That's not the way I want to respond to the tragedy that I've known. But the text doesn't tell us either way. That's what I love about this piece. It's not a judgmental, we should all be strong during times of tragedy piece. I think it's a very real piece about how we respond to trauma. And then finally, it's a little ambiguous in terms of how Noah's years, meaning we're told Noah lived after the flood 350 years, and all the days of Noah came to 950 years. So that means that about a third of his life happened after the flood. It's not that his life was cut short, either by God as a punishment or Noah not taking good care of his health and by drinking himself to death. We know he lived a long time afterward. So I'm very curious, how did he live out that last third of his life? But we don't know. The text doesn't tell us. I did want to share a poem that Adiv, my husband, shared with me when I go through a difficult moment, when I'm trying to respond to pain. I find inspiration in this poem. It's by Rudyard Kipling, the same man who wrote The Jungle Book, but he was also a gifted poet. He writes, "If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster, and treat those two impostors just the same. If you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build them up again with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there's nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose that common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son." Good Shabbos, and may we all know strength in our moments of weakness and support from those who love us. And may we all know that at the very end of things, we are all but human.